Downfall of the US economy began on 10th March 2023, the date we all need to remember. Because on that date, Silicon Valley Bank went bankrupt. It was another 15 September 2008 moment for the United States. Why I am saying 15 September 2008 moment? Because on that date, on that year, Lehman Brothers got bankrupt and it triggered recession in the United States as well as in the world economy. That is why that date is very important. We are already living in the recession moment, but we are not feeling it because there are some factors, those who are not making us feel that we are still living in the economical recession. But slowdown has already begun. Not only the Silicon Valley Bank, but there were other two banks that also went bankrupt. Those banks were First Republic Bank and New York-based Signature Bank. All these banks worth more than $500 billion. You can clearly see that $500 billion was wiped out of the US market. If something like that happened to any economy, then it would put that country's economy in deep freezer. But nothing happened to the US economy. Why? Did they engage themselves in suspicious activities? Did they print uncontrolled amount of money? What they did, we need to discuss. To understand that, we need to know about the current economic scenarios that has triggered or that is making us feel the shock of economic recession. The US stock market saw massive selling on Friday, and technology stocks took a heavy beating. Dow Jones and S&P 500 fell by over a percentage. Dow Jones fell 1.5% and S&P 500 fell 2%. Manufacturing is falling down. How can you understand that the manufacturing is going down? That is an important factor that indicates that how the economy is behaving. There is an index that measures that how the manufacturing is going on within the country. That index is called Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index. Its acronym is PMI. Previously it was at 51.6. On July data, according to the July data, it is now at 46.8, which indicates that manufacturing sector is shrinking. Recently, US employment data has raised eyebrows for investors, not only for the investor but also for the companies and the governments. The hiring has slowed down. More productive American population are applying for unemployment benefits. It has reached 249,000 in a week according to the July data. It usually lies between 194,000 to 245,000. Now it has crossed the upper limit. What it indicates? Which indicates that the US economy losing the steam as a result of high inflation and elevated interest rates. New unemployment application has hit 11 months high. Unemployment rate in the United States is 4.3%, highest since October 2021. The people are currently working, those who are currently working in the companies, they are also not getting paid enoughly. The wages are not increasing at a pliable rate and the benefits are vanishing. The compensation cost slows as well at 4.1%. Therefore, Americans are not spending enough due to the market volatility, which as a result reduce the market activity. The flow of money has slowed and in some sector it has stagnated. The companies are cutting down their strength or freezing their hiring the new candidates. So it is kind of a dangerous situation for the US economy that we all need to take care of. in this case the United States Federal Reserves need to take care of, because Federal Reserves has been the primary reasons for these kinds of economic condition in the United States. One of the main reason behind this speculative market is the interest rate that is controlled by the Federal Reserve. The rate is being rate has constantly been risen by this man Jerome Powell, who is the head of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has increased its interest rate as a result of COVID-19 shock and war in Ukraine. Why Federal Reserve has increased the interest rate? Because inflation after the invasion of Ukraine by Russia has reached 7 or 8%. To reduce the inflation rate in between 2 to 4%, the Federal Reserve has to increase the interest rate, and that pushed this kind of situation in the market. But it is now hurting the US market. It squeezes excessive amount of money from the market, and it is hurting the manufacturing sector. As a result of the little amount of money available in the market, the manufacturing sector cannot expand its manufacturing capability, and demand is very low in the market. As the demand is very low, that the manufacturing needed to be reduced. As a result, we are observing the lowest PMI growth, or lowest in the PMI index. The scope of expanding manufacturing always depends on the open market money, and open market does not have any money left. As there is no money left in the market, it has started hurting every element of the economy, from job, manufacturing, logistics, and the other services. Service sectors has also been hit very badly. The critics are arguing that the US Fed must cut interest rate to make the economy more relaxed. Why critics are asking Federal Reserve to cut the interest rate? Because when the interest rate will be cut by the Federal Reserve, then the borrowing will be more cheaper. More companies will be able to get more amount of money from the banks or open markets. That is why the critics and the experts are saying the Federal Reserve, or advising the Federal Reserve, to cut the interest rate. But Jerome Powell is not looks interested in cutting down the interest rate. He obviously said about that he will going to reduce the interest rate in September. But that is also not sure, because it is very much depends on the geopolitical condition in which we are living in right now. So as Jerome Powell has told that he will not going to change the interest rate for now, for this month, as a result the stock market are losing the money. On Friday, over $2 trillion was wiped out from the global economy, and investors are moving away from the stock market to avoid risk, unnecessary risk, and they are moving now going towards the government bonds, because it is much safer and it offers steady rate of interest, and there is a safety of capital because the government is less likely to fall. As this is the safe place to bet, the investment on the bonds has peaked aggressively this month. This month means in July and August. August will also going to see the increase in investments of government bonds. The bond sale has increased after the events of the West Asia. What is going on in the West Asia? The war between Gaza and Israel has peaked. Israel has eliminated his dreaded enemies, invading Iran, invading Lebanon, and invading other countries in the region. Invading in the sense that they have sent their Mossad agents to eliminate their enemies. So that has triggered the tension between Iran and Israel, which is also causing the market very much speculative whether the war will be happened in the Middle East or not. That is the questions into the minds of the investors, because if war will going to happen, then everything will going to change for the next month. That is why there was a phone call last night between Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and the recent president of the United States, Joe Biden. And Joe Biden scolded Netanyahu not to escalate the matter, to which he has pushed. Now, I have already talked about that suspicious activities has been done by the United States, because after wiping out the $500 billion, nothing has happened to the US economy. If something of that intensity happened in any economy, then that economy would be affected. If that would have happened into the economy of China, then Chinese economy would be affected in a very greater way. And we have saw in case of Evergrande was a real estate company. His share was fallen down to its nadir, and at last the company has to file for the bankruptcy. What happened to the Chinese economy? Their market, the Hang Seng, has shed almost 20% to 25%. So what has happened? 1/4 of his economy has lost its value. 1/4 of his index has lost its value. So such kind of things happened when $500 billion wiped out from economy overnight. But nothing has happened to the economy of the United States. Why? That is why I am raising the question, is US debasing its currency? Because debasing is a very dangerous process. Before getting into that, we need to know what is debasing or currency debasement. Currency debasement is traditionally associated with mixing base metals into currencies that are made with precious metals such as gold, silver, lowering their value. Today, according to some report, US is debasing its currencies at a staggering rate. The rate I have came to know is around 15%. So at a rate of 15%, the United States is debasing its currency, which is very dangerous for the US economy as well as the global economy. And it is happening. And if it is happening, then the US government is printing more money for government spending. So you can clearly understand, the more and the more money coming into the market, printing more and the more money coming into the market, it will push the US economy towards the double-digit inflations. And why the US is risking the double-digit inflations, that is no one's idea. I cannot came up with an conclusions that these are the reasons. That is why United States is printing more and more money. United States has already printed money when they lost its economic value during the time of COVID. And as a result of that, we saw a war in Ukraine, and they give huge amounts of aid to Ukraine. Why that? If they were giving that much of money to Ukraine, that does not mean United States were giving the billions of dollars to the Ukraine. They were giving that billions of dollars to their military industrial complex. So their military industrial complex would produce more and the more weapons. That weapons would be spent in Ukraine, and after that the demands continuously increases, and their economy went on, and this is now the conditions in which we are living. That is a very, very critical conditions, and these conditions need to be controlled. Debasement can still occur. As I say, debasement can still occur when government print more and more money, and it needed to be stopped. United States already printed huge amounts of notes during the time of COVID. Now it needs to be stopped. Otherwise, the bubble will burst and the world economy will collapse. And debasement has been the common throughout the history. It had happened several times in the ancient times, medieval times, and in the modern times. Germany had reduced its value of currency from around 8 per US dollar to 184 per US dollar to meet its financial obligations. What had happened in Germany during the time of First World War and after the First World War? Germany went through the very, very cautious time. Their economy was in debacle, and the loss of the First World War was an embarrassment for Germany, and they needed to pay huge amount of money to France, Belgium, and the other countries as a reparation. So this debasement is also pushing, as I said, also pushing the economy towards the double digit inflations. Now we need to know the why it led to the inflation. The first reason is that flow of money increases that broke the cycle of demand and supply. Supply and demand is the base of the economy. If that these two are not maintained well enough, then whole economy will going to collapse. The second reason is that when the government took out coins out of circulation, the intrinsic value of coin decreased, although the face value remained same, which led to hyperinflations. So these are the two reasons which pushed hyperinflations as a result of debasement of currency. The US has also done that, but nobody knows that what US has done, because the countries cannot control the flow of the US dollar, because US dollar is the reserve currency of the world, and every countries need US dollar to buy products from the other countries. Why? Because US dollar is one of the most stable currencies in the world, and they took advantage of it. If US government is debasing their currency, then it will going to reduce the value of the assets around the world and within the United States. And we have already saw that effect during the time of 2008 recession on Lehman Brothers crisis. These are the things we need to control. And the AI, the flow of the AI needed to be controlled. The AI has reduced some of the jobs market. It is squeezing the jobs market, but the populations of the world is increasing. So if AI will come more and the more way into the market, then it will going to reduce the dependency of the human beings, or the humans, those who are doing those jobs. That if those jobs are now being done by the AI, then where those human beings will go. So this is a shocking moment for the world. This is a transition moment, and it will be tough for the world to pass out this moment, and nobody knows which way it will swing. Now the geopolitical tensions and the economic tensions both are pushing the world towards the brink of the World War III that the experts are talking about, not me. I am no one to talk about the World War III, and I am not in the mood to encourage the world to get into that World War III, because any war will going to destroy this world, because 9 countries have the nuclear weapons, and those nuclear weapons are capable of destroying the earth over and over again. So it needed to be stopped. The second reason is US debt. We are observing that the US debt is increasing. Now the US government debt has reached more than $34 trillion. If that bubble bursts, then what will going to happen to the world economy? Will it survive? Definitely it will survive. The US economy will survive, the global economy will survive, but with the help of the clutches or in the wheelchair. Not the way it is living in today's time. Their limbs will be cut off. Maybe some of the country's economy will be gouged out, like the human beings, human eyes gouged out by the doctors during the time of operations. So massive things will going to happen if this bubble, this debt bubble burst. What is the reason behind the increasing debt? One of the main culprits is excessive government spending on unnecessary things such as war. The US has spent too much money in Ukraine, and that has pushed their own people towards the brink of double-digit inflation. During the time of 2020 or 2018, in the United States, the value of the petrol and the diesel was around $1.75 per liter or per gallon, or around $1.5 per gallon. Now it has reached $7 to $8 per gallon. So it is an 8 times inflation. Inflation has reached 8 times. That is very dangerous for the economy like the United States. Now, the second point is that when the federal government spends more than its budget, it creates the deficit. So, the United States is spending more and the more money, but its budget is stagnant. Suppose, let me give you an example. Suppose United States budget is $34 trillion, but it is spending more than $34 trillion. Let's pick $50 trillion it is spending. How it is managing $16 trillion? It is borrowing the money from the open markets. So open market is getting shrink, the world market is getting shrink, and when they are spending that much of money is being spent into the wire, not in a very productive elements. So unproductive elements. So how that money will going to get generated? Nobody knows that how that money will going to get generated, how that balance money, that $16 trillion will going to get generated in the next 1 year or 2 years or in a month or in a 2 months. Nobody knows. That is the very, very concerning thing for the world, that how it will going to survive with that much of debt. And why I am saying the world will going to survive, because US is the superpower. It is an economical superpower. It is a geopolitical superpower. As if it is an economical superpower, so its economic size is very much. Economic activity, it's massive. So if that economy will going to get fall, then everyone in this world will going to bear the disadvantage of the US economic debacle. That is why I am saying the world need to take care of this. And in 2023, the US government spends about $381 billion, more than it collected in revenues. So there was a deficit. And in 2024 budget, more and more deficit is being added into the US coffer. To pay that deficit, the government borrows the money. Sometimes they print and sometimes debase the currency. Both of these things are very much dangerous for the economy. If the economy is too much open, then these things are very much dangerous. I have already talked about why it is dangerous. US government is facing two-edged sword into the economic front. One is debt and the another one is inflation. And US need to stop funding others' war. They need to stop funding Ukraine immediately and stop fighting others' war. That United States government makers or the policy makers need to understand. These are illegitimate spending and needed to be cut immediately. The US debt is increasing 2 times a year. Let me make you understand that why 2 times a year. For suppose a family is earning around 100k every year and that family is spending 200k every year. Then how that family is managing the balance of 100k? If it is earning 100k, spending 100k, then there is a deficit of 100k. How it is getting those amount of money, that amount of money? By borrowing from the banks. How the banks are getting the money back? They are not getting those money back immediately. They take houses, cars and the other precious things as mortgage against the loan money. But now the real story. If family default on their loan, then bank took over those objects. But again stuck with some objects that cannot be sold in an inflated market. Then what happened? Another Lehman Brothers, another JP Morgan crisis, another Great Depressions. What will going to happen? Nobody knows that what will going to happen. That is why United States policymakers need to be very cautious and need to cut down the spending, unnecessary spending that needs to be cut immediately. Right now, I'm going to point out some of the points that are also hurting the US economy. That is, most of the countries are running away from the US dollar. Why? Because US has used its currency and weaponized their currency to hurt others' economy. Like when Russia invaded Ukraine, then US used its dollar to put the ban on the Russian goods. He put restriction on Russia to do business using the American dollar. As a result, China and India both decided to use their home currency. In India, it is taka, and in case of China, it is yuan. Both of them started spending their own money to buy the goods around the world. And BRICS countries, BRICS means Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now BRICS is getting bigger. Iran is already the part of BRICS. Saudi Arabia part of BRICS. And so many other countries are trying to join BRICS. And BRICS have decided to come up with a currency that will going to replace dollar. That will be very dangerous for the world economy, because nobody knows what will be the replacement of the dollar. Because dollar used to be the very stable currency. Now the new currency, if new currency came to a market, then it will take much time to get itself stable. So as I said, that this is a transition moment, and it will be very painful for the world economically and also geopolitically. And recently, the China has sold 68% of US Treasury. US Treasury bond has been sold by China 68%. It is a staggering percentage. 68%. China has bought almost $1 trillion of US Treasury, but 68% means $680 billion has been sold into the open market. These are the reasons that is pushing the US economy towards the brink of the collapse. Now, recently the US and the Europe tried to sell the Russian bond. So what US and European markets tried to did that, they tried to sell the Russian bond into the open market, but they failed to did that when Saudi Arabia came in the support of Russia, and they threat United States that they will going to sell the US bond into the open market if they will going to sold the Russian bonds into the open market. And Saudi Arabia is not renewing their petrodollar deal. If the deal could not be concluded on time, then it has the potential to bring down the economy, US economy single-handedly, because this is the pillar of the strength of the US economy. The United States signed the deal with Saudi Arabia in around 1973 that they will going to sold their oil using the US dollar. Now they are trying to diversify their economic, Saudi Arabia is trying to diversify their economy. To diversify their economy, they are getting ready to receive the payment, oil payment in Indian rupees, in Chinese rupees, and also in the rupees. Those are stronger in these times of the world. As a result of that, so many US companies, particularly the tech companies, are shedding the worker strength. Who started it? Intel, one of the largest chip manufacturer of the world, have decided to cut its workforce by 15%, which is staggeringly high. That number, that 15%, is equivalent to 17,500 jobs. The company has suspended dividend for this year, for this quarter. And this is the worst moment the company is facing since 1974. And all steps are being taken by the company to save $10 billion. So they are trying to cut their spending, to save their money, to save their revenue. So this is a very tense situation for the US market, the internal market. And if US internal market is in a very doldrum position, then the world market will also going to feel the tensions that is happening within the United States. Not only Intel, AMD and Nvidia is also looking to cut down their workforce. But in this case, they will going to reduce their workforce at a very minute level, because Nvidia, it's it's entirely different from Intel. Nvidia does not have its manufacturing base, but Intel have its manufacturing base. Nvidia is only the chip design company. They give their IPO to the other companies, those who are in Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, to those companies, and those companies building chips for Nvidia, and Nvidia sold those boards or chips around the world to get the money. So Nvidia is pretty much different. Nvidia's workforce is also very much lower comparison to Intel, but Intel has reduced this much of jobs during the days of elections. It will going to impact the current government in a very bad way, but the companies has to come up with this kind of decisions to protect their back. Now there is nothing to say. The United States need to understand what are the steps they need to take to rectify their economy, to rectify what are the mistakes they made during the time of COVID and after the time of COVID, or you can say the recovery time after the COVID. They have pushed different kinds of vaccine into the markets. They tried to create the monopoly into the market to get more amounts of money. As a result of that, they tried to propagate different kinds of propaganda in the different kinds of country in the favor of their vaccines, but it did not work in several countries because the vaccines their companies, the US companies, pharmaceutical companies has produced, they were very costly, and the government at that time had not enough amounts of money to spend spend that much of money on vaccines. And on that time the vaccines of the other countries were cheap, like India were producing the cheap vaccines, and the countries in Asia, countries in Africa were preferring the vaccines those were produced by India. So United States has made very much mistakes during the time of COVID and also in the recovery time, and that needed to be rectified right now. And geopolitical tension that is going on, and these tensions needed to be settled right now. So this is the end of the topic. If you have any question regarding this topic or any other thing, if you want to ask me anything else, then please ask me in my comment sections. So thank you very much. Thank you for your support again.